agenda, we have the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Hernandez and invocation by myself. Everybody please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Everybody please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessing of being able to gather here today. Please be our guide as we deliberate over the business of our school district. Always protect and bless our students, staff, and community, especially in this time as we are about to start a brand new school year. In your precious name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Moving along on the agenda, we have open forum public comment. Do we have, nobody signed up? Okay. Action item A, Business Office. 1, presentation of the 24-25 budget update by Sylvia Garza, CFO. Mr. Howell, could I bother you to mute your camera, please? Or mute your microphone? Mr. Howell? May I bother you to mute your microphone, Mr. Howell? Sorry.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Garcia, Superintendent, or Acting Superintendent, Ms. Venecia, and the rest of the board. I'm here to present an update on the budget and where we currently are. We will have our adopted budget come next meeting, so I wanted to give you just a little update of where we currently are. I'm going to start with the 23-24 budget. On our 23-24 budget, I have included the amended budget, which currently stands right now for 23-24. I also have our actual expenditures coming in right now. If you notice, we have a slight excess at the very moment. This is as of August the 7th, 2024. We have a slight excess of $539,626. But I've added to it additional columns of the estimated revenue and the expected, the expenses that we are expecting for August. We are still expecting about $2.4 million to come in revenues, but we are also expecting $5.6 million in expenses. And included in those expenses, I'd like to go over those revenues. For the revenues, we're including our local tax collections that we still need to collect. We've already received July, I believe, June and July, but we haven't put them into our general ledger yet. So we're working with that, and we're also going to bring in our August, which we have not received yet. So we still have 3 months worth of local tax collections. We also have some state revenue. Most of the state revenue is already in. What we don't have is our settle up yet. So our settle up doesn't come in until September, and we don't know the amount of that yet. There's an estimate, but we don't have any concrete numbers for the moment. Now, also in the revenue is included our federal drawdowns, which we do on a monthly basis. We still have not done July and August, and so those are still pending to come in as well. So that's what makes up our total revenues. Now for our total expenditures, the total expenditures include our accounts payable of an additional almost $2 million. We have our payroll, which is about $3 million, and we're also going to have an accrual for the additional 5 days for starting school earlier. That's going to also affect us, so I'm putting about 500,000 in there for that. So also, I left out on the estimated revenues. We're also having some money come in from child nutrition for the meals they're going to be serving in August. So that is still pending of about 240,000. But in total, we have then the last column is the estimated ending balances. So we are looking at a possible excess of $2.6 million and not the $4 million that we had budgeted. So for right now, it looks it'll be around 2.6 million. Now, we also have revenues that come in from a local source. Sometimes we receive small checks, we have deposits that come in. Those will continue to be posted as they're coming in. What also is not on these slides is any adjustments that the auditors might ask us to make, some reclassifications, or maybe even bring in an additional payment in the old or the 23-24 year rather than paying it out in the new year. So sometimes the auditor allows us to make some entries into our old year. They may affect our revenues or our expenditures. So we are also doing a lot of reclassifications on some staffing that was not aligned properly into their role. So we're looking into making sure that we bring down our administrative cost ratio up of function 41 because we did have several employees there. So and with these numbers right here, with the total expenditures, we are estimating about 85 days of operating costs. So that one, we're still meeting the 75 that is required by TA. So when we move into our 24-25 budget and tax rate. So this is our tax rate, the way it stands right now. We have proposed the 0.7869 for our M&O and the 34 cents for our INS for a total tax rate of 1.1269. Now, after we received the certified values from our county, we were able to plug those into our summary of finance and get a little bit clearer numbers on the state funding for the 3 cents on the disaster pennies. And so this is looking a little bit clearer on the actual additional funding that came in because of the disaster pennies. So this also affected by this is the ADA that we budgeted at, which was lower than, we took a 2% cut on that. So when we plug in the numbers, the funding formulas calculate what the funding will be. So the property value is affected, the ADA affects it, and so we of course, if we have higher ADA come in, then we will get additional funding. But for right now, this is where we are at when we budgeted for our ADA.
I have a question, Mr. Board President Garcia.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Garza, can we go back to the fund balance slide, the one before that, where you were talking about the estimated ending balances?
Yes, sir.
You have there total revenues, 53,941,868. You're saying that that's the estimated ending balance, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So we had, when we passed the budget last year, we had anticipated 55 million, 55.7.
Correct.
Okay. Was the ADA the main factor why we didn't reach the 55.7?
Not for the 23-24, because once we submit those to TA that we are estimating our ADA at a certain amount, or we're estimating our enrollment a certain amount, they're called the pupil projections, which are done 2 years before. And so once the legislative planning estimate amounts go in, we get funded by those pupil projections. And so if our ADA becomes lower than that, we still get funded up on that higher amount. But when we get to the settle up, they turn around and they collect they collect it or they give it back to us if we had excess. And so we have to go based on what those pupil projections were 2 years ago. Like this October, I will be doing pupil projections for 25, 26, 26, 27. And so we have to have good estimates to submit to them, because if we submit them too low, then they'll fund us on those numbers, even though our ADA might have gone way up higher. So those are based on pupil projections that were done prior.
So what would be the main cause for the variation from 55.7 that was the predicted or anticipated budget amount for this school year, and your estimated ending balance of 53.9? What's the main difference?
Well, the difference there is during the year, we have what we call the PEAM submissions that go in. They have 4 submissions a year. Usually the one that really counts is the fall submission. And so they take the numbers from the fall submission and they start adjusting the summary of finance. And so it starts getting adjusted if it shows higher numbers in our special ed, or it shows higher numbers or lower numbers. They start adjusting slowly, and they start putting in the numbers into our summary of finance. Even though we're getting funded at whatever the rate is from the pupil projections, those numbers still start fluctuating. And so when they notify us what our funding will be, then that is what we use as estimates to begin our budget. And so those were estimates that we had at the time when we actually did our budget for 23-24.
Because I'm looking at the 23-24 budget executive summary, and it says there in the last paragraph that the fiscal year 23-24 is going to be financially challenging, but administration will be committed to increasing revenue through investments, improving SHAR's revenue, improving ADA, increasing tax collections, and becoming more strategic with district spending. So in terms of the revenue, which of those would you say came up short?
What came up short is last year we budgeted at, I believe it was like 3,900 ADA, and we also had a 93% attendance rate. And so those came in less at the end of the year. And so that does affect us as we go through those PEAM submissions and they start updating the summary of finance. You can start seeing some of those numbers come in. Now, those numbers won't affect us right away because we're being funded on the legislative planning estimates. But come the settle up, the money that we were expecting based on the ADA we planned for is no longer there, because we had a decrease due to the settle up amount. So for this coming year, I think we were a little higher than what the planning estimate was. So we're going to see a little bit of revenue come in. How much, I am not certain yet until we get closer to September and they do the settle up. But even though it's a little higher, I've already had my revenues for this year. So once we adopt the budget, it goes into place, and then once they do the settle up, we have to adjust it. And so sometimes when it's less and we have less revenue coming in, that's when it really hurts, because we've already budgeted and we've already had expenditures for the amount of revenue that we were anticipating. But when you have a decrease and they take money from you, like let's say they take $1 million, well, that's $1 million off the current budget that we have to reflect, and we have to bring it down. And so the settle up can hurt us if we are planning a decrease. And if we have higher, well, of course we can always put it in our budget and then plan for what we want to spend it on. But for right now, when we do the settle up and it's less, that's when it hurts.
Well, the good thing, though, that I'm looking at from your report is that we had anticipated 59.8 million in terms of expenditures.
Correct.
But what you're saying is we should be ending 56.5 million So that's a decrease over what we anticipated, which is good, which means according to what you have here, instead of having a $4 million shortfall, it's only gonna be a 2.6, still a lot of money,
Yes,
but better than 4.0.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask something also? As far as like rebates, any monies that we have coming back from our insurance, whether from the prescription card, you know, we have some money due between 2 and say $500,000 coming in on some of this stuff that we can apply towards the general fund. So will we be able to offset some of these costs with this money?
Okay, so some of the refunds we're getting from the RX plan or the rebates that we're getting, those will be sent back into our health plan. And so they're gonna be used to offset the additional costs that we may have for that purpose. So
Okay.
we're just, whatever money we receive, we're putting back into that plan.
Okay, but it could be used for either or. If you had to, in emergency purposes, could you put it into the general fund?
Since there are rebates, I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. It's always nice to have a little insurance access to some extra cash there.
Yes, sir. As long as the actual fund itself is not in need of it, we'd rather cover the expenses coming from the RX plan or the insurance plan.
No problem. Like I said, as long as we have access to it, it's just a little reassuring.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Garcia, I have a quick question. I have two questions, by the way. The historical property tax value, state and local, I was doing my homework, and I noticed that, and I don't know if you had that slide with you.
Yes, I have a presentation on that coming.
Yes, so in 2019, which is really interesting, and I want this to have the conversation with the taxpayers as well, that the local and the state, the historical property tax value, state and local, it has, 2019 has roughly $590 million. That's local, and then the state has 578 million. And then in 2024, the historical property tax value, state and local, I could be wrong, so help me out, Ms. Garcia. 2024, it's now roughly $774 million. That's local, and then state is 756 million. To me, that seems like a great deal for us. But can you elaborate a little bit, like it's almost like an inverse
you looking at
relation?
this
Yes.
one? Okay.
Can you elaborate for the taxpayers' sake? It's almost like an inverse, it's almost like a penalty.
Yes.
Because can you elaborate for the board and the community itself? Because I've said it before, we have to live within our means. I don't want to go back to the past decade over there where the adults need to show up, some leadership. Can you elaborate, please? And then the second question I'll ask you. Thank you.
Okay. For the historical tax values, the amount that came in from our local appraisal district came in at $774,481,438. And our previous local property values were $734,434,948. So we did have an increase about over 5%, I believe. And so as the property values are going up, the state funding goes down. And so because when the properties go up, we're supposed to be collecting more in local taxes. And so once we collect those taxes, they go into our general fund, and we're able to offset that with our expenditures. So when we don't collect, then we're short that amount, and so that also affects us when we actually propose, that we're going to receive so much funding and we don't.
Sorry to cut you off, Matt. So on the record, you're saying if we do not collect the taxes, that we're actually hurting the funds, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Second point I want to bring up is, I want to know the remedy. It's here, there, no. No, I tell my kids the same way, the way it is. Life itself is not fair. And no one cares about your opinions. Facts is the reality of it all. What is our first thing we need to do in January, February? What do we need to start planning? Is it staff? It's a RIF? We need to start discussing staff, because Mr. Rodriguez and I, we brought it up again. Here's the ADA going down, and the staff enrollment and the staff numbers are still static, it's still going up. And I've said it before in public, said this is not the federal government, we just don't print out money, because eventually someone's gonna have to pay for it. So, ma'am, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but these are very difficult conversations we have to have. We have to have the stomach for this. What is it we need to do as a financial part of it? Is it the staff? Is it funding? What is it that we need to do immediately?
Okay. I think that historically speaking, I mean, I've been here since December. What I've seen that has affected us the most is our ADA. I believe we have the enrollment. It's just that just because we have the enrollment, if our kids don't show up to school, we're not getting the funding. And so I think that we should have maybe some initiatives in place to go and find those kids. And I think it has to be on a consistent basis, on a daily basis. And, you know, it's important that the kids come to school. And so I know we ran into some issues when they were presenting ADA information at our leadership. And so they were presenting rates that were a little higher than I was coming in. And so I was concerned about that. And I said, well, we need to make sure that we account for every single ADA. There were some issues with excuses and things like that that were not turned in. And so I think that if we just focus our attention on the student and making sure that they come to school, and when they don't, we go out there and we look for them so that they can come to school. Because it is so very important, because without them, we cannot generate the revenue that we need.
I appreciate it, Ms. Garza. Ms. Venecia, thank you so much, you and your staff, and thank you for doing that extra lifting on recruiting, and thank you so much for addressing to the staff. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Garza. Thank you, Ms. Venecia, for the ADA issue.
So we move forward from that one. This is again our general operating revenues. We are still working with our summary of finance. We are budgeting at 3689 ADA, which is a 2% decrease from what we actually came in. And we're also basing it on 95% tax collections. So anything above 95% is a plus. It's additional revenue. Any ADA above the 3689 is additional revenue. And so we're hoping that we get our ADA up higher than the 3689. That way we can have some additional funding coming in. The decreases, I just want to go over the decreases that we have for the foundation school programs, which is our state funding and our federal funding. They're both due to the loss of ADA. So that is why we have those deductions there. Our general operating expenses, right now, this is what I'm proposing at the moment. I am taking into consideration all of the ESSER funded employees that we had that were being paid out of ESSER that will no longer be. We had about 1.5 million come into the general fund. And so this is the net effect of all of those. I've made some reductions, taken some 10% reductions on each of the object codes, and we've tried to bring down as much as we could. We also included the disaster penny adjustment there as well. We're still working with HR to refine our payroll cost, because I believe there's some savings, additional savings there that we don't have a number tied to yet, but we are working very, very hard to try to get that information and possibly bring down that 42 million a little bit more. So this is where we are at proposing for the 24-25. We have total revenues of 53 million and total expenditures of 60 million with a deficiency of $6.1 million. This 7 million is the proposed ending balance for next year. This is below the 75 operating days. So we are working, like I said, trying to bring down those expenditures for the coming year to try to alleviate some of the deficiency we have here. we're hoping that we can bring back some good numbers for you.
So,
Where
Ms.
are we
Garcia,
on the, where are we on that again? What is our, how many days in the fund balance, I'm sorry?
The 7 million that you're seeing for the following year, 24-25, is below the 75 days that we are required by TA to have. I believe,
That's what I'm saying, what day, how many days are we at?
I think it's, I crunched the numbers, I think it was about 45, I believe. So they were kind of low.
Which is the lowest we've been in about 3 years.
Ms.
Right.
Garcia, Eddie, you finished on this one or no? Eddie, you finished?
Yeah.
Ms. Garcia, a real quick question. So, this proposed budget for 2024-25, that means if we have 100% ADA, we get all ducks in a row, we're not gonna have a deficit.
No, we probably still will. We are still, our biggest expenditure again is payroll. It's makes up more than 70% of our budget. And so therefore, in order to make an impact and to bring it down as much as we need to bring it down, we need to decrease our payroll expenditures.
Okay, so, 2 years, we do not have drastic measurements in there. You're foreseeing a deficit, a negative deficit, zero. The state will come in here and, hey, we need to do drastic changes.
I think this coming year will be the year where changes will need to be made. We will need to be more conservative. We will need to be sure that we analyze any position where someone leaves or someone resigns, whether we actually need to fill it. We are working with HR, making sure that, and I know Ms. Venecia has been instrumental in it, making sure that our classrooms are still well staffed, but yet we condense some of those classrooms, making sure that there's enough students in each classroom. We also, we've been trying to work those numbers and getting those payroll costs down, but it will require, constant vigilance of our overtime, our substitutes, and any amounts, because we do have a liability for comp time as well. So, even though we might not be paying it, they're still accruing it, and they still have it as a balance. And so at some point or time, they're either gonna, if they take it, that'll be great, but if we have to pay it out, then that's where it costs us. And that's all I have.
Mr. President, I have a comment for
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Garza. On that particular page, ma'am, the general operating expenses, on 6,200, on line item 6,200, we're cutting from this current year to next year proposed budget, $353,000. On supplies and materials, we're cutting $612,000. Other operating expenses, we're cutting. But we're still adding almost $1 million in payroll from this year to next. I think that's what we need to really look at a little bit closer and ask administration to see whatever we can do. If we're saying that the ADA is going to be going from 3967 to, what did you say, Ms. Garza, 3689?
Yes, 3689, yes, sir.
Yeah. And what are we anticipating our enrollment to be? Last year we anticipated 4266.
Right now, I believe it's at 4,000.
Right now, we have total registered 4,082 as of today. We still have, I'm working with Mrs. Esparza and Mr. Handy on the total numbers because they had an additional 700 students that hadn't registered, but I want to make sure that that number's correct. I don't want that number to be skewed, so I'll get a most updated list tomorrow. But we do have 4,082 already registered.
Can you give me those numbers again?
We have 4,082 students registered as of today.
Okay, nice. And what was it last year at this time?
It was a lot less from what Mrs. Esparza and Mr. Handy told me earlier.
It's an intriguing twist. Well, good.
And
Wow.
so, we do still have some that have not registered. I'll get those updated numbers tomorrow.
What a lovely ray of sunlight. Good news.
But like Ms. Garza says, Mr. Howell, without that ADA, without those kids showing up, we better make sure they show up.
Of course, but the fact that, we're already at the 4,000 and there's potential for more. Obviously, I know that we're losing a lot of kids, but at least we have a foundation and we can make a move, and there's still a lot to there's a lot we can do to get these numbers up.
Thank you,
And
Ms.
we'll bring
Garza.
about that later, but we've already talked about some great ideas, and but yeah, we're right there.
Thank you, Ms. Garza.
Thank you. One last thing, I gave you a folder with the public meeting that we're gonna be having for next week, and also the proposed budget. These two items are requirements to be posted on our website, so I just wanted to give you a copy of those.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Were there any other questions from the board for Mrs. Garza? No, I appreciate the questions that were asked today, and I do agree with Mr. Hernandez. We will not go back to that time where people were just doing whatever they wanted to do and spending outrageously. We will not go back there. We will do our best to make sure we turn this ship around. So moving on to number 2, presentations for delinquent tax attorney services RFP number 06-04-24-403. Number 1, I believe we have Linebarger Attorneys at Law. So we're gonna have kind of the similar format we had last time, just this time we're gonna do about 5 minutes. Does that sound fair to everybody, with 3 minutes for each board member? Okay. Whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Dr. Venencia, Board President Garcia, and esteemed members and trustees of Mercedes ISD. Thank you for the opportunity to show you again why Linebarger continues to be the best choice for Mercedes ISD. We have partnered together for 24 of the last 25 years. The district, like 2/3 of the districts in the Rio Grande Valley, have chosen to partner with us for at least 10 years or more, with 90% of our current Valley clients renewing their contracts. We are proud to share that we represent 113 clients in the Rio Grande Valley. Now, since we were last here, we've had the opportunity to look at the other firm's presentation via YouTube and saw several statements that required a fact check. And so that's what we like to do with you tonight. The other firm boasted about a small attorney-to-client ratio of 1-to-4, suggesting that this provides a better client service. Well, this isn't true. Our vast attorney experience provides a group of attorneys with the know-how to draft complex pleadings and successfully represent clients, even on appeal. Just as Jimmy and I did for this district, he and I drafted and filed this appeal on behalf of Mercedes ISD. It was our names and our signatures on the filings, and this is giving the client the attention that it needs, Mercedes the attention it needs. The other firm required the use of one of their Houston-based attorneys to file their pleadings and to do the hard work. So I'm not sure what exactly the 1-to-4 ratio provides, but I know it doesn't provide increased know-how and experience. In addition to litigation work, our clients rely on our team of attorneys to manage and supervise our collections work. So let's turn to our collections work. The other firm told you in their recent presentation that they have a history of higher collection rates for their clients, including Mercedes ISD. With a simple fact check, again, that's not true. Mercedes ISD has had successful collection history with Linebarger for 24 of the last 25 years. This is history. The 1 year the other firm represented this district proved itself to be the lowest collection year we have seen in recent history, all in gray. The only fiscal year that surpassed, was the 18-19 year, which was the terrible fiscal year in which this community experienced 2 horrific floods. During the other firm's presentation, they also asked about the impact of refunds. Y'all asked about it twice. and you weren't able to get a straight answer. The green numbers you see here represent refunds. During the other firm's 1 year here, the district had some of the smallest amount of refunds in recent history. Whereas this past year, we experienced the largest amount of refunds. You'll see over $71,000 of our collection dollars were paid to refunds. And this year's on pace to match that. The impacts of refunds are so significant. Your Hidalgo County Tax Office is in the process of changing the way they report delinquent collections so that it's clear what the impact of refunds are. The other firm also mentioned that this district is currently 2% down with an incomplete fiscal year, mind you, and that 2% accounts for $9,000 difference. But what they didn't mention to you is that they have completed their fiscal years in the city of Mercedes, 4% and 5% down every other year. Now that drop represents a combined $85,000. This is a loss of tens of thousands of dollars for a client. Take an even closer look and compare where they finished off last year in the city of Mercedes to where we finished off in this district. Same community, vastly different results. They also said they've been doing a great job at Wesco ISD, but take a closer look. They were coming off a down year, built upon another down year. The worst collections in Wesco ISD in recent history. Again, the other firm just can't compete. But what they also didn't tell you, and what we found out after this last presentation, is that the other firm currently finished their first fiscal year for Brownsville ISD, their first one. And the tax office records in Cameron County for Brownsville ISD reflect that they are 8% down compared to our collection efforts. You know what that 8% accounts for? Over $800,000. In closing, thank you for the opportunity to present, and I look forward to any questions that you might have.
Okay, we'll start remotely with Mr. Howell. Mr. Howell, are there any questions that you may have, sir?
No, but intriguing. Not much of a presentation. It was more of a rebuttal of everything that they had said last week. But that's okay. I'll take that. Answers a lot of my questions. So okay, thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have any questions, sir?
Well, something I didn't ask at the last presentation was, of all the accounts, we know that some of them, some of the delinquent accounts, because they're in litigation, a property that maybe there was a death in the family and someone didn't leave a will. Essentially, those are going to be really hard to collect on right away. Of the remaining accounts, the ones where there is a high potential to collect, what percentage of those individual accounts do you think we're at right now?
In terms of collecting on those individual accounts, that's a difficult question to respond to, Trustee Rodriguez, but I'll tell you what, even on those accounts that are difficult to collect on, or those that are free to collect on, but the difficult ones in particular, there are vehicles and way those can be collected on. I'd like to highlight one particular effort that our firm spearheaded, and that was with the American Rescue Plan. You know, during COVID, people struggled with potential foreclosure, and our firm, specifically the Edinburgh office, was the pilot program for the entire state of Texas for distributing and organize the American Rescue Plan's efforts to prevent folks from losing their homes. If they had delinquent taxes, delinquent mortgages, even HOAs, they were entitled to apply for this grant money, free money, that they could apply for to pay off those things to avoid foreclosure. Well, due to our efforts in organizing that in conjunction with, of course, the Paul Vidal from the tax office, the county judge, all of us worked together. And in the 21-22 year, I believe it was, Mercedes ISD alone received over $62,000 in that ARP money. You know, so that's the kind of efforts that You have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to find resources that aren't otherwise available. And you get that experience and that ability to adapt with a firm like ours, with a staff with nearly 1,000 years of combined experience. You learn these tools as you go along, or you create them in order to best help, the clients we serve during very difficult times.
One last comment. Okay, so and it's the first thing that you touched on, because that's what caught my attention too last time, was the 18-to-1 to 4-to-1 ratio. And in your personal opinion, you're saying that the 4-to-1 opposed to the 18-to-1 plays no factor? How is that possible?
Well, Trustee Howell, I'm not really sure about where that 18-to-1 figure comes from. But what I do know is in the Edinburgh office alone, we have over 90 years of litigation experience.
No, I know that. The experience is there. There's no doubt about it. Your firm has a very great reputation. So I'm not questioning the experience. I'm just questioning how you're arriving at how 18-to-1 to 4-to-1 doesn't benefit us.
Well,
But nevertheless, maybe Purdue will explain that to us. Let's see. Maybe this will give them an opportunity for that. But from what you've dove into and what you've told us, it doesn't seem to. It's not making a big impact.
well, Mr. Howell, I'd like to reiterate that we may have a higher client to attorney ratio, but we're the ones filing and managing the difficult cases. Like I mentioned, with whatever attorney to client ratio we have, both myself and Jimmy found time, which wasn't difficult to do the legal research and to file a response to an appeal successfully. It didn't have to be farmed out to a Houston office, to a Fort Worth office. We were able to do it here. So if it's about a lack of time, overwhelmed by clients, you don't have that. You don't have that with us. We're able to do that.
I mean, it's like, an experienced plumber, one experienced plumber is probably better than 10 guys it ain't.
You said it better than me, Trustee Howe.
Well, thank you. I'm good.
Mr. Hernandez, you reserved your time to.
No.
Okay, Ms. Delgado, you have any questions?
No questions, no. Actually, Mr. Rodriguez made a very, addressed some of the questions that I had about the collection on delinquency. Thank you, Ms. Kelly, for the information. You pretty much, break it down. It's, to me, I didn't really understand it a whole lot. I mean, I just know about, I get my taxes, I pay my taxes, But I'm glad that you are able to work with a lot of families, those that are in need, and that they're trying to catch up, so that they can, they can keep the property, do what, I know you don't do anything drastic. I've learned a little bit of information from you about the collection process, but I do have a concern about how it affects our district when there is such cases of delinquency, and we do need to be a little bit better about that and ask those questions and get as much information as we can. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trustee.
Mr. Martinez, any questions, sir? Good. Mrs. Vallejo, any questions?
Kelly, I just wanted to comment. I know from your previous presentation, I've been doing research up until last night, and a lot of the key points that you pointed on your rebuttal were things that I actually noted down. And so I know you've been working really hard. I know I've reached out to you with concerns about our delinquent taxes and, how much is due to the district. And I know you've been working really hard, your entire firm has. And, just the percentages and the numbers that you presented just confirm what you've told us all along. So I just like to thank you for the information and for that rebuttal and the clarity because sometimes, you know, we will have presentations, and if we don't do our research, we take your word verbatim for, you know, as what we're being told. So I know right now the situation that the district is in, it's very delicate, so I made it a point to go back and to look at that, because like I've been stressing to you since I came on board, the importance of collecting on those taxes and working with our taxpayers of Mercedes, because we are in dire need of any money that we can collect. As you know, everybody's aware, we just, you know, our CFO just went over those numbers, so just thank you very much again.
Thank you, trustee, and I appreciate that. As mentioned before, we usually don't have an opportunity to rebut statements. It's very rare, and so it's nice to be afforded that opportunity, and it's not meant to be in any ill will. It's meant to make sure the facts are what they are.
Presented,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Trustee.
I don't have any questions, ma'am. Thank you for your time. We
Thank
appreciate your
you.
presentation.
Thank you, President Garcia.
Do you think we can swap with the firm so that we can have their presentation and ask them questions?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone excited for the first day of school tomorrow?
I'm excited. It's my second year retired.
2 years. And that's how long you've been growing that beard, right? 2 years.
It's more than you got. This proves you're más indio than me. He's a little weird.
It's gonna take me probably
So I gotta get ready. We have no watch. You guys have water? I think it's there. Ms. Vallejo, how are you? I didn't have a chance. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Howe?
Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and move on with the presentations. We have Purdue, Brendan, Fielder, Collin, and Montel LP, attorneys at law. We're gonna have pretty much the same format we had last time. This time we're gonna be 5 minutes, and we're still gonna reserve 3 minutes per board member for questions should they have any. So whenever you guys are ready to go, we're ready.
How you doing?
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Good afternoon, President Garcia and honorable members of the board. I am Janelle Gasso, an attorney at Purdue Brandon. I would like to first thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come before you today to answer any questions and to provide more information so you can make an informed decision tonight. Joining me here today is Mr. Idam Gutierrez, our managing partner of our Rio Grande Valley Purdue offices. One thing's for certain, Purdue Brandon's collection rates are superior, and let me show you why. At the last meeting, the other firm presented to you that collections last year at Mercedes ISD were 38%. Let's set the record straight. This data table comes from the Hidalgo County Tax Office. Highlighted in yellow, you will see that last year's collections at Mercedes ISD were in fact 36.49%, not the reported 38%. On the next column, you'll see the current collections that just finished in June at 31.60%. As you may recall, at the last meeting, it was told to you that collections were on par with the prior year. Unfortunately, that is not the case at Mercedes ISD. Fact is, collections are trending downward. There was a lot of talk about refunds at the last meeting, that refunds could be a reason why collections are decreasing here at Mercedes ISD. So let me show you this bar graph. In blue, that's Mercedes ISD's. The refunds this year were $61,000. Well, if you look at your neighboring district, Weslaco ISD, Weslaco ISD had 5 times more refunds than Mercedes ISD, over $300,000 in refunds. So you may be asking yourself, well, how are collections at Weslaco ISD? Are they also decreasing like Mercedes ISD? Well, let's take a look. Here in this bar graph, in orange, that's Mercedes ISD. The first bar shows your collections last year, 36.49%. Your refunds last year were $71,000. Well, this current year you ended at 31.60%. And refunds, as you see on the red column, refunds are $61,000. So if you see there, your refunds actually decreased from last year, and so did your collections. You're being told if refunds are increasing, that's why your collections are decreasing. But that's not what's happening here at Mercedes ISD. Your refunds have decreased, and so have your collections. So let's look at your neighboring district, Weslaco ISD, which is collected by Purdue Brandon. Last year, we ended the fiscal year at 39.32%. Last year, our refunds at Weslaco ISD were over $200,000. Well, this year, we ended the fiscal year at 44.59%. That's 5 percentage points more than last year. Well, look at our refunds at Weslaco ISD. Our refunds actually increased by 50%. That's $100,000 more than the prior year. So our refunds increased, but so did our collections. Refund rates have actually decreased here at Mercedes ISD compared to last year, which contradicts the notion that refunds are the cause of the downward trend here at Mercedes ISD. This data suggests that another factor is at play. The bottom line, it indicates a decline in the effectiveness in collections by the other firm. The last meeting, there was a lot of talk about an anomaly payment. So let's talk about that. Here in the slide, you'll see this is a petition that was filed by Purdue Brandon on behalf of Mercedes ISD when we represented the district. This was for that taxpayer that was delinquent. About a month after this lawsuit was filed, a payment came in due to our collection efforts. A payment of over $337,000 came to your district, Mercedes ISD. Thank you. I'll open it up for any questions.
I will start again virtually with Mr. Howell. Are there any questions, sir? Mr. Howell? We'll move on. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned that you currently are servicing the Weslaco Independent School District. What are the school districts in the valley?
We also represent Brownsville ISD.
Okay. In those two school districts, what is your tax collection rate so far this past year?
So if you see here, we ended this past fiscal year at Weslaco ISD at 44.59%.
On Brownsville ISD, first of all, when we calculate the collections over there, we don't add penalties and interest like you've done, like what you requested, but the collections ended up at 42% over there, which was an increase over the collections from the prior year. And prior to when we collected, we've increased collections at Brownsville ISD. And I do want to point out, while Brownsville ISD collections went up this past fiscal year that I just ended in June, the city of Brownsville, which is represented by our competitor, actually decreased. They saw a decrease in their collections. Brownsville ISD saw a small but significant collection increase, and Brownsville ISD saw the opposite. I'm sorry, the city of Brownsville saw the opposite, a decrease.
Thank you.
Mr. Howell, go back to you. Were there any questions, sir?
Okay, so did, in your opinion, how does your, 4-to-1 ratio, benefit us over the 18-to-1 ratio? If you can elaborate again.
Well, what you can do is you obviously are able to pay much more attention to the collections, the accounts that have gone delinquent. It's just a.
I get it,
yeah.
but tell me in layman's terms, because obviously, as you just heard, it's not really playing a factor.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I think the fact that we have a tighter, smaller span of responsibility allows us to focus more on our clients. One of the things that happened recently is, it's kind of difficult to explain, but taxing entities didn't affect the Mercedes ISD, but many taxing entities lost out on thousands of dollars of what we call excess proceeds, and it was simply because it was inattention to what claims for excess proceeds were being made. No objections were being made to claims for excess proceeds, and therefore claimants were able to claim money that did not belong to them. It's kind of a difficult subject to explain, but it just gives us the ability to focus on your account. You can see West Loco ISD, West Loco ISD, which is represented by us, has much better collections than Mercedes. And
Okay.
I mean, that's the proof.
Okay, let's go ahead and let's stop right there. Okay, I'm good.
I just had a quick question. I think it was maybe, I want to say 8 or 9, 10 years ago, when Purdue came on board. One of the things that your firm did and Lineberg wasn't doing.
Oh, thank you for bringing.
Can you elaborate a little bit, because
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Hernandez. As you know, most of the funding that the school district receives is through state aid, right? Everybody understands that. And your state aid is calculated based on what your taxable value throughout Mercedes ISD is. If your taxable value is calculated too high, you receive less tax aid. So what we do for Mercedes ISD, and we're currently doing it, no one was doing this before. We came in and said, look, nobody's providing these services to Mercedes ISD. You're losing out on thousands of dollars in state aid. You hired us. I know my competitor said, no, we're taking care of this. You're not losing any money. That was not true. Through state aid, since we started doing this for you in 2019, you have received over $1 million in additional state aid. And what does that tell you is that we were focused on how we can help Mercedes ISD. What can we do for Mercedes ISD to have more funding?
So could I interject real quick?
Yes.
So Lineberger never brought that to the school district.
Right.
You took the initiative because you knew the situation that we're in. Again, you had the decency to tell us. Is that about right?
That's correct. In fact, we had come in prior to that. We tried to talk to your prior superintendent. We told him, look, you're losing out a lot of money. We can do this services for you. It will not cost you anything unless we actually bring you additional state aid. I don't know what happened, but our services were not.
Okay, how much, since we started doing that, how much have we had to bring in, how much have we brought in additionally? Ballparkish.
Approximately, just a little over $1 million. I would list $1,040,000, I think is the amount. And one of the things that was said, like, it's something.
Hang on.
Over how long of a
Hypothetically,
period?
I know we it's, you know, it's just in theory, but say we had been doing it for the last 10 years, is that a possible, hypothetically, you know, could we have made an extra $5 to $10 million, just hypothetically? If we would have been doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Howell. Again, in just the 4 years, approximately 4 years that since we started filing these audits for you, you've already received $1 million. And I do recall somebody saying, look, it's something insignificant, it doesn't matter. But look at how much you're collecting in delinquent taxes in a whole year. 545,000, 501,000.
I hear you. I'm good.
So absolutely, the district lost out a lot of money. The other firm provides the services. Why they never came to you and said, hey, you're losing out on money, we can help you? It's beyond me. I don't understand it.
Well, it's just, I'm gonna be honest, I
Okay,
wanna be on the record, sir.
we're good. Let's see if anybody else has any more questions. We're trying to roll along.
The way I see it, I want this to be on the record, and I want the taxpayers to hear this out. My humble opinion about this is when board members get comfortable with vendors. And that's all I gotta say, and I have no more questions anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Delgado, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Martinez, any questions?
No.
Mrs. Vallejo, any questions?
No.
No, I do have a few questions. What was the end of the Wesco ISD fiscal year?
It ended in June.
June? Okay. When is our end of our fiscal year, just for giggles?
August.
So we haven't rounded out our fiscal year. Okay.
I'm sorry.
We haven't rounded out our fiscal year. So what you're saying is we finished at 31.60%, but yet we still haven't finished collecting, have we?
This is a
Is
July.
that's a yes or no?
The collections,
It's a yes or no question.
your fiscal year has ended.
Has ended as of when?
Under July through June, it has ended.
I'm sorry, correction. Your fiscal year has not ended, but all the collections that have been presented to you by our competitor have been July through June. So
But
as they're,
My question though, sir, is have we finished collecting for the fiscal year? Yes or no?
you have not.
Thank you. Okay,
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
who is
I
Thelma?
know you're trying to
Coach,
connect something
Coach,
up.
give me a few
Okay.
seconds. Who is Thelma R. Banduck?
He's an attorney that used to work for us. She's retired.
Where was she out of?
McAllen.
McAllen? Okay, thank you. $300,000 payment, what, you mentioned that at the end of your 5 minutes, Ms. Picasso. Can you explain to me what that is?
Yes, that was a payment that was made by a taxpayer. It was over $700,000 payment that came to the district because of our collection efforts. The district was paid $337,974.97.
Who is that taxpayer, do we know?
It's CPG Mercedes LP.
Okay. Coach, you had a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, I know you were trying to say something, you were cut off because they were not letting you elaborate. I would like to know.
Yes. When we first presented collections for you, go to that slide. We presented these collections to you. This is your fiscal year. And that's all we showed you. We later found out that the other firm was showing you July through June because they thought that might be a little more favorable to them. But this is your fiscal year, July through June. As you can see,
September through
I'm
August.
sorry, September through August. As you can see in blue, that's Purdue Brandon all by ourselves. The multicolored is both firms collecting for you. Red is the other firm. In 22-23, you ended at 21.64. As of the end of June, you're down 2%. Your July numbers have not completely been counted, but I already know that your collections are actually going to drop even more than 2% as of July. That means you only have one more month left to collect on fiscal years. But as you can see, there's a lot of ground to make. But even if you catch up with last year, you're still down.
Okay, I gave you this question last time, and let's see if the answer changes. What is that 2% attributed to?
Need to work harder. As you can see, West Laco ISD has even more refunds than you do. Our refunds increased from last year, but our collections actually even went higher. So there is no direct correlation between refunds and collection stats. There is no direct.
Okay. I am good. Are there any other questions? No. Any other questions from the board? No, I think we're good then. Moving on to, thank y'all, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board.
Moving on to the next item, discussion of possible action to award the delinquent tax attorney RFP number 06-04-24-403 for the fiscal year 24-25. Do I have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend we award the tax attorney services to Lineberger
Okay, do I have a second?
Attorney.
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Vallejo. I have a motion and a second from Mrs. Delgado and Mrs. Vallejo. Do I have any discussion?
Just a
Mr.
comment.
President, I will need to inform the board and everybody that I will abstain from this vote.
Okay, sir.
I was just gonna make a comment. I just wanna, thank the firms, very competitive. I was on the record about 2 years ago. I believe in competition and I've been looking at some of the data that's there. I want to be on this, I want this to be on the record as well. Not once did I call on the Lineberger firm or the Purdue firm. I do my own decisions. I do my own research. I don't go to vendors. I don't deal with vendors. I just tell them, go talk to the superintendent. And it's kind of scary when, in the past, historically, board members will listen to vendors like if it's scripture. It doesn't work that way. The way I see it, the mathematics is there, and I think one of the firms did perform. But then that's my opinion about it, right?
Of course.
Facts don't care about your opinions, and that's all.
Let me just make
That's
a
a
quick
fact.
comment too, sir, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Mr. Howell.
My dilemma is like, it's like, we're asking, it's like, there's some contradicting information. One says we're better, the other one says, no, we're better. And we're like, well, who is, I wish there was somebody that could break the tie here and tell us who actually is better. Could, you know, it's almost like one saying no. I mean, am I the only one that's hearing the same thing, that saying that they're both better? But who is actually better?
Well, Mr. Howell, I think that's a very good question, because they're both very competitive, and I have, excuse me, and I have the same questions. But I think, like Ms. Vallejo mentioned earlier, it's about research, and a lot of us can bring, you know, we do a presentation, we can bring facts, of course, we can bring data, but when you do, initially, when you're independently, when you do your own research, that's what, you know, that's where you can make your own determination about, you know, who is doing better.
Okay, so you're saying everybody do their own research and let's have at it.
I'm saying it works for me.
Because I've heard some pretty compelling. First, so let's go ahead and get to it.
Any other comments from the board? We have a motion from Ms. Delgado and a second from Ms. Vallejo to approve Linebarger for the contract for the delinquent tax services. I will have a roll call vote, so I'll start with you, Mr. Howell.
Okay, nay.
Mr. Hernandez.
Nay.
Ms. Delgado.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Nay.
Mrs. Vallejo.
Yes.
And yes, we are again at a deadlock, 3-3. With Mr. Rodriguez abstaining. Do I hear a second motion?
I have a motion for Purdue.
Okay,
I'll second that.
we have a second. We have been moved and second to award the contract for the delinquent tax services to Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Motts. And do I have any discussion?
Mr. President, once again, I will be abstaining from this vote.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion? Okay, so hearing that, I will then start again virtually. Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yay.
Mrs. Delgado?
Nay. Nay.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mrs. Vallejo?
Nay.
And I vote nay. We are again at a deadlock. I will make a motion, however. I move, is this something with me? Can I stop here to take a brief recess to confer with council on a potential motion?
Sure, you can, request to go into executive session, to consult with council and ask a specific question, legal question.
Okay, so I move to go into executive session to discuss with council a specific question regarding the tax delinquent attorney's contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Vallejo. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same
Aye.
sign?
Nay.
Okay,
Nay.
the vote is 5-2. The motion passes. The time is now 7:12, and we are in executive session.